Are you retired, but you're realizing that the money that you're getting from your retirement, whether it be from your pension, your Social Security, or both, is just not enough? So, what you're thinking about now is getting back out into the job market and looking for work. I understand because I have done pretty much the same thing. I have retired a number of years ago, but I am in the job market now. I'm not looking for anything like, 90 hours a week, but a little part-time job to supplement my income or to supplement your income may be just what you need. But before you get out there and start looking for work, I want to give you some tips. I want to give you some strategies, must know tips, must know strategies. If you've been retired for a while and haven't been in the workforce for a while, things have changed considerably. Well, I'm here to share 12 tips with you. So stay with me throughout the whole video because you will thank me later. Things are not the same as it was when you retired 1, 2, 10 years ago. Things have changed considerably. So you may see me looking over at my cheat sheet because I don't want to miss anything. I want to give you all the information I can possibly come up with. Now, I have been a career counselor for, years. And so I have supported individuals with looking for work and being successful in finding work. So I know a lot of the tips and strategies. In addition, I know the contemporary tips and strategies because I'm out there right now looking for work. Well, I'm not really looking right now because I found work, and I don't have any problem, to be honest with you, finding and securing work because I utilize the tips and strategies that I am getting ready to share with you. My name is Maria. So if you like this information, well, I know you're going to like it because you're going to thank me later. Subscribe and share if you like. All right. And leave comments if if this was helpful for you. I'd love to hear from you and I will definitely get back with you. Let me get a glass of water so we can get started here. All right. All right. So let's get started. Number one, your appearance. Now, when I say appearance, you don't want to look dated. You don't want to look fossilized. Let me get some more water here because it's getting ready to get deep. You're like, fossilized? What are you talking about? When I say contemporary, I don't mean, because a lot of the people now, young people now, even those who aren't so young have tattoos here and tattoos there. I was at a job recently and the young woman who was the front desk program manager, front desk office manager, she had tattoos on her neck and tattoos all on her hands and, pardon me, tattoos. Pretty much everywhere I was looking, I was seeing tattoos. She had them covered up for the most part, but I could still see them on her hands. I could see them on her neck. But she was good. She really knows her stuff. But you see a lot of that now, nose piercing, body piercing. I don't mean when I say, look, be contemporary, that you got to go out and get a bunch of tattoos. I don't mean that at all. I don't actually have any tattoos and don't plan to get any tattoos. If you have tattoos, then more power to you. So I'm not hating on you if you got tattoos. But when I say contemporary, don't be fossilized. By that, I mean, what I usually say is, for men, get a nice haircut. Women, get your hair done. And, maybe if you wear makeup, put a little makeup on and pardon me, I don't know, I got this tickle in my throat. And for the men, you just want to look neat and clean and presentable. You don't want to have hair growing all down your neck as a man. And women, and men, please don't dye. If your hair is turning gray, don't dye your hair. I don't like dyed hair. Just, clean it up, look good, get a nice haircut, and don't put, because everybody can tell you've colored your hair. So we definitely not talking about men going out and coloring their hair. Women, that's another story, all right? All right, but the emphasis I want to make is get a makeover, look good when you walk in there. But when I say that, don't go out and when I say contemporary, do not wear a three-piece suit. Do not put on your latest, your cummerbund and your alligators. That is not what I'm talking about. Be casual. What is it? Professional, but business casual. Let's put it that way. And it depends on, like, if you're going for a job with a bank, then that's a whole nother story. Or a law firm, that's another story too. But most of us are not. Some of us may, and if you are, then you address accordingly. But you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to have your church clothes. when I say church clothes, I guess people wearing everything to church now. But when I say church clothes, I mean, you don't want to look like, you got your little sequins on and all that. No, you want to be business casual. You want to look contemporary. You want to look like you're up to date. All right. How about that? All right. So moving right along here. What am I looking at? The day before you actually have the interview, you actually may want to go to that location and check it out. Maybe not the day before, whenever before the actual interview. So you're not going there the day before. You can't figure out where you're supposed to go. Is this the building? Is this the street? Was I supposed to turn left? Was I supposed to turn right? Is GPS leading me, giving me the right directions? You don't want that on the first day. So take your time. You know when the interview is. You want to, do what I call a dry run to the end, so you know exactly where you're going. You might even get out the car and go in the building, and just kind of make sure you're going up to the right floor. You don't go in and announce yourself, say, I'm coming for an interview tomorrow. No, you do that on the QT, on the quiet time. You don't do that. You just do that for your own comfort. So the day of the interview, you're comfortable and you know where you're going. I went for an interview not too long ago. I knew where I was going, but they had no address on the building. So I actually had to discover the address. It's a huge office building, but there was absolutely no address. So I actually asked the man, I said, excuse me, sir, and he's a businessman, looked like he worked in the office. I said, is this address? Da, da, da. He said, yes, it is. So, but I want you, before you go for the interview, to have all that navigated, all that mapped out already, so you know exactly where you're going. So, because when we do an interview, it's natural to be nervous. So you don't want to be nervous trying to get where you're going. You run in there and call and say, I'm going to be a few minutes late. I'm trying to park. No, you don't want any of that. And so you want to make sure you get there and timely enough so you can go to the bathroom, take care of your business, look in the mirror, make sure everything is looking good, and maybe even just take some deep breaths. Just take your time and take some deep breaths before you go in and announce yourself to the receptionist and say, I'm here for the interview. So you go to the restroom, look in the mirror, do your business, and then when you're actually going into the interview, then you can feel comfortable. You're relaxed. You've taken a deep breath. So you're not going into the interview with perspiration rings under your armpits. I know you wouldn't do that anyway, but what I'm trying to suggest is you want to be as comfortable as you possibly can, because I've done a ton of interviews, but each and every time I always got this little bit of, butterflies in my stomach. So you want to make sure you alleviate as much nervousness, as anxiety as you possibly can. So you do a 5-star, 10-star interview. All right, so come prepared. Bring your resume, all your documents. If you fill out an application, you want to bring a copy of the application. You want to bring a copy of your resume. I went for an interview recently, and the woman said, oh, can I have your resume, the front desk woman? And can I have your application? I'm thinking, I was going to keep that for myself. But she wanted to give it to the interviewers. And fortunately, I did have a copy of it with me. So I want to suggest that you definitely make sure you bring that with you. Don't go into the reception area. Another tip, we're on number 5 now. Don't go into the reception area 20 minutes, 30 minutes early. Nobody's prepared for you. They don't want to see you that early. So don't go in before, I would say 15 minutes. That's it, maximum, and, sit there, introduce yourself, of course, and, take some time to relax and take a deep breath, and just try to just focus on, don't start thinking about what are they going to ask me, because you've already done your mock interviewing. Hopefully we'll get to that in a minute, but this is your time to just relax. You don't have to start trying to chit-chat with the receptionist because he or she is busy, and they're not looking for you to hold a big, long, drawn-out conversation. You want to just sit there and relax, take it easy, and know that you're going to do well in this interview. All right? So, because a lot of times we'll have this little mind chatter going, like, what are they going to ask me? Did I check my nose? Do I have the right questions? So we want to try and alleviate that as much as possible. So nervousness is a natural part of interviewing. I just want to say that. Like I said, I've done a lot of interviewing in my day, and Each and every time, I always have a few butterflies floating around. But if you have a lot of anxiety and a lot of nervousness, once you do go into that interview, this is a tip. You can actually say to the interviewers, I've been really looking forward to this interview, so much so that I have to admit I'm feeling a little nervous, a little anxious right about now. If they're a really compassionate or a good interviewer, they will say, "Oh, don't worry about it. You're doing fine. Don't worry about it. We just want to ask you some questions." And so they will try and see that you are, to the best of their ability, try and give you a few words of comfort. But the reason why I suggest you say you're nervous, if you're feeling really a lot of anxiety and a lot of nervousness, is because guess what? It's going to show. You're going to be like, you're going to, in perspiration, I've even interviewed, I've done a lot, like I said, I've been a career advisor for a number of years, and I've interviewed individuals doing mock interviews, and perspiration starts dripping, and out of here, around their neck, you can see. And I'm feeling so bad for them. We're just doing mock interviews, but hopefully that won't happen. But if you're feeling anxiety, if you're feeling nervous, it's going to show. So when you say to the interviewers, I'm feeling a little nervous. Once you do that, guess what? It's like I'm old school, and my stepmom used to use a pressure cooker, and when she used that pressure cooker and it got to a certain pressure, it goes like that. And she'd take the little thing off the top of it and let all the air go out. So when you acknowledge that you're feeling a little nervous and you're not trying to hide it because you're not doing a very good job, then it's like, you're acknowledging that you're feeling a little nervous. And it's like giving you a release, so to speak. And the interviewers will take into consideration that you are feeling nervous. So, tip number 7, we're moving right along here, is active listening. So during the interview, listen. Don't feel like you have to answer the question as soon as they ask the question. You're like, no, you can sit back, think about what it is that they just asked you. And even if you have to say, let me think about that for a second, not for a minute, because a minute is a long time. Let me think about that question for a second. And you think about it. You really, because you've done your breathing and you've done your relaxation and you got there on time. So you're going to think about this question. So you want to have your mind all nice and clear to the best of your ability and think about the question and then respond. Because you're human and it's not expected that you will have, as soon as that question comes out, they're reading off a piece of paper or whatever, you got the question, the response as soon as they ask the question. You may need to think about it. I was just thinking, I've been in a lot of interviews, as I said, and I love it when they give you the questions. I've even gone to interviews where they actually have the question taped down on the table so you can't accidentally walk out with it. I mean, big deal. But I've been to interviews, and I love it because you can actually look down and read the question, they give you the question, they read it, and then if you need to reference it, the questions are right there. Most interviewers don't do that, but I love it when they do that because you can actually look at the question and reread it. Or if you need them to actually restate, if that doesn't happen, you can ask them, would you mind repeating that question? If it's not clear, you can ask them, would you mind repeating the question? And they will repeat the question. Also, I want to say that in terms of answering the question, like I said, you want to think about it. If you need them to repeat it. And then also, the other thing I want to say is be an active listener. Let's see, and make sure. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I just thought about it. This is important. Sometimes they'll ask a 2 or 3 part question. Give me a time when, and once you did that, and da-da-da-da. It's 2 or 3 parts. You're thinking, how am I supposed to remember all that? You're sitting there reading a piece of paper. I'm supposed to remember that? So, in that instance, when you start responding, because it's 2 or 3 parts to the question, and you don't remember all the parts. So you answer what you think may be the first part or partial answer. You can ask that interviewer, did I answer all aspects of the question, all parts of your question? And they may say, oh, well, no, you didn't answer the, part C or whatever it is, the latter part or whatever. And then you answer it. So you want to make sure that you have answered all parts of the question. A lot of times they won't even let you know that you haven't answered all parts of the question. You just see them writing like, oh, they didn't answer all the parts of the question. And you're like, so what I've learned to do is take charge. Take charge of that interview. You don't let them just run amok on you. No, I didn't answer all. I don't think I answered all of the question. Would you mind repeating the latter part of your question? And they will do that. So make sure you're listening and paying attention to make sure that you have answered all aspects of the question. So moving right along here, be prepared to ask questions. Be prepared to ask some questions. At the end of the interview, when they ask you, do you have any questions? You want to be prepared to ask questions. But before we get to that, let me go and look at my little cheat sheet. Be confident when you go into the interview. After all, they are saying we need help. They've looked at your resume that you submitted, and they're interested in talking with you and see what you have to say and how you might qualify or be a good fit for that position. Don't forget, too, that when you're interviewing for that position, they're interviewing you, you should be interviewing them, because all jobs, all job environments are not necessarily going to be a good fit for you. It doesn't mean it has to be perfect, but you're listening and paying attention to the demands of the job, who your supervisor will be, whether there'll be any training. You're paying attention, and you might get home and think, something just don't feel right about that job. I don't know if I'd be a good fit for it or not. But of course, you want to be realistic about it as well. Everything's not going to be a perfect fit. And the other something that I want to say is be confident. Don't be passive. Be respectful, of course, but also they are interested in you because they wouldn't have invited you for an interview. They value their time, and you should value your time as well. The other thing I want to suggest is do a mock interview. Once you know that you're going to be interviewing for the position, get somebody who is mature, who can go online and get some interview questions and have questions that are related to the position that you're applying for and to the company that you're applying for. The other thing I want to say too is know about that company. Do your research. Know what the mission statement is of that organization. They may ask you, what do you know about our company? You're like, oh, well, I know they said you were hiring. You want to know more than that. So I always write down the mission statement of the organization. The mission statement is telling. The mission statement is, why does that organization, why does that company exist? What do they value? It's in their mission statement, and you definitely want to know that. You want to be sure and be able to share your skills, your experience, your interests, your expertise in whatever position it is that they're hiring you for. So you want to have gone over that in your mock interview, and also you can have a few notes that you've written out for yourself, but you don't want to practice. You want it to be natural, be your organic, authentic self to the best of your ability in an interview. Now, I have a pretty big sense of humor, so I have to kind of pull it back when I'm in an interview, because I don't want to get too relaxed in an interview and they think this person is they're a little bit too casual. So I do let a little bit of my humor show, and I'll tell them, oh, I have a great sense of humor, and they'll say, oh, that's fine, we love it. Right. All right, moving right along here. So, as I said, the employer is looking to fill the position. You want to do your best to showcase your experience, your expertise, your background, your skill set, and all of that. So be ready to answer those questions. All right, so you want to do your best. Don't be afraid. What I want to say is, don't be afraid to come across confident. Don't be afraid to, say, a lot of times they'll ask you, well, why should we hire you? And then you want to have a response as to why they should hire you. Okay, we have other candidates who have applied for this position. Why you? So you want to be prepared for that answer, because that's that question, because that's a pretty standard kind of question. And you want to be prepared And when they ask you that question, you want to be able to talk about your experience, your skills, all of the above that would be of value to that employer. So be prepared to answer that question. Why should we hire you? Now, at the end of the interview, when they said, do you have any questions? You want to have questions. You're not going to ask about the salary. You're not going to ask about health benefits. You're not going to ask about vacation. Those are givens, hopefully. You can ask questions. I'm going to give you an example of a few questions. You can ask, what is the process? In other words, are they going to have 2 interviews, 3 interviews? How will they go about determining whether or not they're going to call you back in, or whether they're not going to call you back in, or whether there's going to be more than one interview? Okay, that's an example of a good question. Another good question is this a new position? And sometimes it is a new position, sometimes it's not. And that'll give them a chance to say, well, no, it's a new position, or yes, it's a new position, or no, it's not a new position. The other question you can ask, if they've already answered these questions, of course, you're not going to ask them questions, but these are just to give you some, because sometimes a lot of job seekers will say, I don't know what to ask at the end of the interview. Another good question is, how is the position funded? If you're not sure, if they haven't mentioned it and you're not sure how it's funded, you might want to ask. Another question you might want to ask is, will there be training? If so, how long will I be trained if I was to be hired for this position? So those are just a few questions that you would want to ask you can ask at the end of the interview when they say, do you have any questions? So I think that's pretty much it. There's a lot more I could go into, but I just wanted to kind of give you some real good insight and strategies for actually going for that interview, so you don't go through all this preparation and flunk the interview. I don't want you to flunk that interview. All right, so Maria, subscribe, like, and leave me a comment. I would love for you to give me a comment. If I can help you with any interview questions or whatever else, I will do that, because I get back to my folks when they leave comments or ask questions. All right, so thank you again, and wishing you well if you have an upcoming interview. All right, see you at the top.